All right, this is Management 4950, week 14. Class has just ended, and I realized I did not hit the record button, so I get to record it again real quick. That's all right. I should try to pay better attention. So this week is a sensitive week, and you'll see why. I want you to understand that I'm not coming at this from trying to change anyone's views on anything when it comes to worldviews, religion, whatever. But I'm trying to present material from the textbook in a way that treats everybody's views as being very important because they are, and that's how I see them. So keep that in mind, and we'll get through this. You do have a 4 to 6 page paper coming up soon. Use APA 7 for general formatting, citations, and references. Do not plagiarize. I will be grading for clarity, composition, and content. Make sure you use the instructions and the rubric. So I begin this class by asking you a profound philosophical question posed by Oshri. How does one be in the world? By this, I mean, how are we to exist in a state of being when surrounded by the many difficulties and issues we can easily see in the vast sea of humanity around us? More specifically, how do you exist in a state of being within or with an organization comprised of flawed human beings? So we enter into Act 4. Now, Oshri does talk a lot about religion. Just as a preface, once again, I am not here to alter anyone's views. We're just trying to get through the material in a sensitive manner. Various religions implore their adherents to see themselves as in a state of being. The Bible does here in Matthew chapter 15, 19 through 21. Basically, and I'm not going to read it, but basically, quickly paraphrase it. Jesus is saying, if the world loves you, it's because you're of it. If it doesn't love you, it's because you're of me, and I'm not of the world. And people are going to persecute you for following what I say. What he's getting to is the essence of being. He's getting to, where are you at? Are you in this system? Are you in that system? Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and one of the three Stoic philosophers of antiquity, wrote in his book, Meditations, book 10, as one who is all, I'm going to paraphrase this also. Basically, what Marcus Aurelius is saying is that what is your nature? Who are you? Are you able to think and reason? If so, great, then you should. Are you able to make decisions? Are you able to think through the process of decision making? If so, then you should be able to do it. But that we got to keep ourselves in a way that we are sociable creatures as well, not just creatures of reason, but creatures of a social structure. We have to apply that part of ourselves that truly is, and not the parts that aren't. So when it comes to belief and being, you really need to be true to yourself. The existentialist philosopher Soren Kierkegaard wrote, "Where am I? Who am I? How did I come to be here? What is this thing called the world? How did I come into the world? Why was I not consulted? And if I am compelled to take part in it, where is the director? I want to see him." So what does being mean for you? Oshie wrote, "Certainty eliminates the angst of uncertainty. Beyond that, it leads to the inevitable battle of certainty versus certainty." Have you ever noticed two people both claiming they have the right answer, but they're totally opposite? That's what Oshie is talking about. He also further noted that as a species, we tend to try to escape from uncertainty. We've talked about that periodically through the course of this class so far. Any organization we can belong to or even evaluate is a cesspool of uncertainty. Tops are faced with the accountability and responsibility of the organization or system they enter into. They face many different, even opposing decisions that they must make. Which decision is the correct one? Oshie pointed out that there are often no correct ones. Bottoms come into a system where they are vulnerable and may ask how they can best adapt. Here, Oshie mentions that there are no correct ways to handle this vulnerability. Middles come into a system that simultaneously tears them in multiple directions. Oshie pointed out that the middles can align up, align down, burn out, or bureaucratize. Dominants and others face uncertainty when navigating the upheaval. Oshie again noted no correct solutions. This is true at each level in a system. So what is the solution? Mutant moments. Oshie wrote, mutant moments inevitably produce turbulence, the old dance shaking, yet in the end, they have the potential to produce results that are empowering for the actor and the system. But we try to avoid this turbulence as people typically. But we shouldn't try to avoid it. We should actually embrace it. Each potential decision or solution is viable, yet they each seem to lack the pull, the drive that we need. Oshie, his discussion of the above material pertains to the middles, but I think it applies to each and every level, the tops, the bottoms, the ends, the middles, the customers, the providers. Oshie pointed out that many people have the urge to leave or quit their jobs at this time, the time of turbulence. Oshie talked about how the dance of the blind reflex draws us into the tunnel of limited options. Tops believe that they are responsible for the system's fate, and their options are limited by that belief. Bottoms tend to believe that the tops and middles are responsible for their condition and the condition of the system. They place blame. The middles reflexively slide in between others' issues and conflicts and make them their own. Dominants or others reflectively act to reduce turbulence generated by the meeting of their culture with another. Oshie wrote, once in these tunnels, we can see only options that are consonant with these beliefs. We cannot see the more powerful options that lie outside the tunnel. We get stuck in stagnation. Questions from each level begin to emerge, and this brings brand new concerns and uncertainties. Remember, uncertainty breeds uncertainty. From all these uncertainties, potential new solutions can begin to emerge if we allow it. Remember, uncertainty, chaos. Creativity comes from that, innovation from there. Tops can begin to see that they need to develop a system that holds its responsibility in its hands. Bottoms need to accept the responsibility for their outcome. Middles need to maintain their independence of thought and action and use it in the service of the system. Dominants or others should employ the turbulence as a basis for creating a new culture, more robust than the existing ones. These are not easy to do, but essential if a change is to be made and sustained. As Oshie wrote, living from these standards challenges us to become more of what we can be as individuals. It is also true that they challenge our systems to become more of what they can be. All the aforementioned potential solutions exist as a design principle for our organizations. Each works with the others, and each strengthens the system, building its capacity to survive and thrive in its environment. Oshie pointed out that the following groups stand at odds with each other. The expansives versus conservatives. That would be the liberals versus the conservatives. The hards versus the softs. The egalitarians versus the hierarchials. So what does this mean? Expansives, driving for growth, feel constrained by conservatives. Conservatives, trying to maintain stability, feel endangered by expansives. Hards, driving to set high performance standards for system members, see softs as weakening members and lowering the quality of performance. Softs, striving for congenial relationships, see system members as hards, see hards as unnecessarily alienating these members. Egalitarians, driving to motivate by reducing differences, see hierarchials as insisting on dysfunctional barriers. Hierarchials, striving to create clarity in duties and responsibilities, see egalitarians as blurring boundaries and weakening authority. None of these situations is ideal or optimal for the system or the people inside. Oshie now begins to discuss the various groups at the bottom level. You have the adapters versus the moderates versus the radicals, and we're going to discuss these three groups at each one of the levels of the organization. So at the bottom level, adapters decide to accept the system how it is and work with it. Moderates tend to be softer at approaching the situation, while radicals tend to be the hard-line individuals. Radicals tend to think that moderates are too soft on issues. Moderates can see radicals as extremists, and both of these groups can be seen by the adapters as extreme troublemakers. Here, Oshry pointed out that there are the upward aligned, downward aligned, burnouts, and bureaucrats in the middle level. So that's the directions their decisions can go. And we've already discussed these. Oshry pointed out that the middles can align up, align down, burn out, or bureaucratize. Now we turn to the adapters, moderates, and radicals at the dominant/others level. The dominants and others are not excused from the problems. Oshry noted that there are preserve protectors and allow adapters. The preserve/protectors are a force for keeping the others out. The allow/adapters are a force for keeping others in. The two groups, or two types, are in conflict. Oshry wrote, the key to resolving firm oppositional positions lies in all parties recognizing that beneath the apparent uncertainties lie fundamental uncertainties. So when we look at this and we think that we have a certainty and it makes us egalitarian or hierarchical or soft or hard, then we have to realize that under that certainty truly is an uncertainty. We need to see the possibilities emerging, avoid polarization, hold possibilities up to the light and examine them. Use our flexibility and be a force for what is missing in your group. Oshry pointed out that when we hold too tightly to our position and strive to force it on the system and others, we hold it even deeper. It entrenches it into us. That, of course, is confirmation bias. We must understand that neither position is correct, but we can develop the best one. This is taking the position of possibility. I hope that you can see the sheer level of complexity in systems thinking and its potential solutions. Every perspective has strengths and limitations, but remember that not all possibilities are possible. Not all arguments are worth considering. We have to consider the viability of something. I may want to float, but I'm on a planet with gravity and an atmosphere that does not let me float. If I was on a different one, that would be possible. Since it's not possible on this planet, I cannot just float at will. Although it is possible, just not on this particular planet. That was an example. Oshry then discussed ambiguity regarding firmly entrenched religious views. And I do want to point out, my intent is not to dive so deep into religion here. Yes, I am a graduate level theologian, but that's not the intent of today's class. Certain events in the holy texts from every religion never happened. The creation narrative is in several religious texts, yet the earliest record is from some other place completely different. It's from the ancient Sumerians. They wrote about it in the Eridu Genesis account. But that Eridu account was written 1,000 years before any Jewish writings. And it also includes a flood narrative, which both the Jewish writings and the Eridu writings both have a flood narrative. But the main character in the Jewish writings was Noah. In the Sumerian writings, it was Zaisudra, the king of Shuruppak. I don't present this material to turn this class into a class on ancient religions. Still, as a graduate seminary theologian, I wanted you to understand that our beliefs are more complex than what we might think. Oshry brought up the uncertainty of religious beliefs. And I just wanted to take you a step deeper into why or how you could even entertain these thoughts in a book on systems thinking. Things such as the creation account, the flood, the spread of humanity, and more are constructs in many religious traditions and texts. But which one is correct? Oshry has shown us that none are the right one, yet all can come together and forge a new system in which all traditions are respected and honored. Can a system be developed where everyone is truly free to be themselves? According to Oshry, yes. It is possible through centering on verifiable factual events and logical coherent facts. We find those as the central points that unify. He's going to talk here in a minute about myth versus logic. We use the logic to ground the myth. Therefore, we can connect several different mythical systems or religious systems or whatever systems we're doing, if we can ground them into a logical foundation, we can build a system that is good for everybody. I understand that many of you may not think that I'm right, but do I not have the ability to be myself as in a state of being? You should be free to think and believe as you see best for you, but none of us, myself included, should limit other people. Why should we find a way to develop systems of diversity? I should restart that again. We should find a way to develop systems of diversity and inclusion. We should become truly equitable. Oshry introduced the two potential paths before us, either myth or logic. He pointed out that there is often a forceful attempt to convert individuals to our way of thinking / believing. That, of course, is confirmation bias. But is there room for both the myth and the logic? Yes, there is. We use the logic to ground the myth. It was not my intention to take this lecture into deep religious or non-religious ideologies, but Oshry took us there in his book, and so I tried to approach this in a delicate way today. Uncertainty is everywhere, and we can better understand systems thinking, and complexity theory when we understand this uncertainty and embrace the reality that none of us knows the correct answer. As Oshry pointed out, great atrocities have been historically committed in the name of a particular worldview. Think about the Holocaust, the numerous inquisitions, the Crusades, and every holy war or other war that has been fought. Many of them have been based on myths. Even today, people fight on the internet claiming that the earth is flat, even though humans have known since the time of the early Greeks that it is round. Systems theory, meaning systems thinking, and complexity can help us better understand the world and how the numerous ideologies and religions can begin to live in harmony. You have an article here by Palama, and Skarzuskin, and I have a hard time saying their names, so these authors began their discussion by pointing out that systems thinking is found in complexity theory and nonlinear dynamical systems theory, also called chaos theory. The authors noted that the old paradigm for leadership is grounded on reductionism and analysis. While both reductionism and analysis still do hold some benefit for the systems thinker, they are not the end of the conversation. Data analysis includes examining, categorizing, tabulating, testing, and otherwise recombining both qualitative and quantitative evidence. Clark warned that the natural consequence of analysis is friction. Analysis breaks the subject being studied into its essential components and looks to understand the whole through the lens of the various parts. Analysis is a reductionist approach. The authors pointed out that a new paradigm is needed to holistically evaluate organizations. It is essential to point out that both approaches, analysis and synthesis, are beneficial and valuable. Using both approaches is an excellent way to understand the topic under evaluation better. The authors noted that so leaders can effectively make decisions, a framework that considers the entire system is needed. They also pointed out that it is essential to consider feedback loops within that system. And you can only do that when you're viewing the system holistically. Specifically, the authors looked at the impact systems thinking has on leadership. They then took the reader through the foundations of systems thinking. And for this lecture, I will assume that each of you has watched all the introductory lectures and the other lectures and material that's required for this week and all the weeks to get to this point. Therefore, I will not be explaining much about the origins and foundations of systems thinking at this moment. Interestingly, the authors found that the very fabric of organizations has changed to become a socio-cultural phenomenon. They discussed that the sheer complexity of modern life has impacted organizational life. And they found that it can be difficult for leaders to best evaluate their progress and efficiency because of this complexity. But how can a leader evaluate their leadership effectiveness? The authors cited Peter Senge and his discussion on how low and high leverage change to be understood in how systems thinking can help. This is due to the interconnections within a complex system that can best be understood using systems thinking. The authors further found that systems thinking can improve your strategic planning. They pointed out that patterns need to be considered by leaders. Evaluate, look at the patterns, the behavioral patterns, the patterns of communication, etc. They rightly concluded that in the modern day, sorry, like ramp, right out of nowhere. I'm sorry, class. Okay, we're back. They rightly concluded that in the modern day, leadership competencies need to include the ability to use systems thinking. And that was something that Forbes magazine, as of May of this year, did point out. Many organizations consider systems thinking to be a soft skill that organizations want their new hires to possess. The authors discussed emotional, social, and cognitive intelligence competencies, and they are very essential for us to understand in context of ourselves as leaders and the system that we lead. They looked at leadership's personal, relational, and organizational dimensions. And after we finish these 4 dimensions, we're going to call it quits for today. And I'm going to do another video, probably Wednesday, and I'll be putting that up. We won't be having class Wednesday, but I will put an extra video finishing the material for this week. The personal dimension. The authors wrote that leadership as personal development, personal change, personal mastery, personal maturity, personal values and attitudes, and continuous learning and leadership as thinking and lifestyle, life philosophy, spiritual health, life, work balance, moral standards, and self-realization. The relational dimension. So that's all the internal stuff. The leader is doing a self-evaluation, a self-analysis. They're self-aware. The relational dimension. The researchers wrote that leadership as relational is between the leader and the followers. Influence, interaction, trust, intellectual stimulation, individual consideration, contingent reward, and serving other people. This is where we begin to see that interconnectivity between the elements. Organizational/strategic dimension. The authors wrote that leadership as continuous change, transformation of the organization, productive work, organization performance, understanding resistance to change, discovery leverage point, perception of complexity in global context, and the leader as a constructor in the organization, system approach to the organization and process orientation. So here we're moving to, we went from the person to the interconnectivity. Now we're looking at all the elements and their interconnectivity within the whole. So now we're getting to the point of seeing the big picture. They found a link between transformational leadership and achieving the desired goals of the leader, which I think we've already discussed. But here we find it at the dimension that includes the organizational and strategic level. The authors found in their conclusion that systems thinking has a direct impact on all dimensions of leadership performance, but personal leadership performance I'm trying to figure out why I cut it there, but okay, so it has an effect on all the dimensions of leadership performance, but we really got to look at it from our personal perspective. That's where I was going with it. The researchers did find that systems thinking is most important and valuable in explaining organizational/strategic leadership results. They did find that systems thinking had the most significant effect in the manufacturing sector. With the modernization of the manufacturing process, new tools were needed to help leaders more thoroughly assess their ability to lead others in this complex environment. I'm afraid I have to disagree with the researchers a bit here. In the interconnected business world, systems thinking is beneficial also in retail. So the business environment includes the manufacturing environment and the retail environment. We got to consider that more than one sector can benefit from systems thinking. While it's not the panacea to everything, it is useful in quite a few situations. The reason that the study reflects a slant towards manufacturing is that the study was conducted in 2010. There's been a lot of research done since 2010 on systems thinking and its application in other sectors. So the theoretical implications of the study, I don't think we're going to go through. I think I might cut them out of the slides deck, the slides eventually. So we're going to end there for today. I'll pick back up on Wednesday with that video. I wish each and every one of you a happy Thanksgiving. Be safe and enjoy your time away from the school.